2, 3, 4 people would make it in the trek that the Dalai Lama himself had made on foot across the Himalayas from Tibet to India, to Dharamsala. And typically they were wrecks when they got there, first of all. They were emaciated and very often very ill. And typically they were less than half the party they started out with. 10 people would start out and 5 people would make it. Because there were literally lions and tigers and bears along the way. There were glaciers. People would die of hypothermia, they'd freeze to death, they'd die of starvation, they were waylaid by bandits, they were, just all these things. And they told these god-awful stories. I remember one in particular, a young man that we talked with who had just arrived about a month earlier. And he had to leave Tibet because his brother had a t-shirt on with John Lennon. And John Lennon had glasses with a round, And the Chinese authorities thought that the John Lennon t-shirt was the Dalai Lama. They mistook the image of John Lennon for the Dalai Lama. And they took his brother in the public square and executed him right in front of everybody the moment that they saw the t-shirt. And then they went looking for the family. And the family got out of Dodge, or a bunch of them, and they ended up there at Dharamsala. Over 1 million of the 5 million Tibetans in Tibet have been murdered by the Chinese since the Dalai Lama left in the late 1930s. Over 1 million, 20% of the population. There is a cultural as well as a physical genocide as we speak, being done by the people who make pretty much everything that we're using. So, as we were having these discussions about what should we talk to the Dalai Lama about, China was on all of our minds because we were seeing all around us. There's about 120,000 people living in Dharamsala, and 100% of them are refugees from Tibet. And all of them had these kind of stories to tell. And so this fellow who had been part of the anti-apartheid movement strongly argued that we should, as a group, because among the 35 or so of us, we had hundreds of books in print and with collectively tens of millions, perhaps hundreds of millions of readers. And he said, we should lead a movement to boycott the purchase of Chinese goods in the developed world until China stops the genocide. And we got a real fight about it, because there were a couple of folks among us, the leader who was Fred Allen Wolf, who was a physicist, who said, we didn't come here for politics. We came here to solve the world's problems. So we didn't come here to declare war on China. And then there were others of us who were saying, no, you can't, the two are intermingled, you can't separate them. So finally, after a very acrimonious day and a half of debate about this, we took a vote, and a majority of us decided that we were going to support this motion to do the boycott and to lead it, to initiate it. And we met with His Holiness, and we spent about 4 hours that afternoon with him. And the fellow who had been part of the anti-apartheid movement got up and he said, we would like to offer our services. We would like to help lead a boycott against China until they stop killing their people and let you return. And the Dalai Lama was very, very nice and smiled. And he loves to tell jokes, by the way. It's his favorite thing is to tell jokes. He and Carl would and then there was, we were all done, and with our presentation, and he smiled, and then he said, out in front, there's a steeple. It's like one of these tall, four-sided, with a little point on the top, not quite a pyramid. It's like 12, 14 feet high, with a giant metal, or actually a granite pole in 4 sides. And it's carved in Tibetan on 2 sides and in Chinese on 2 sides. And he said it's 900 years old. Maybe it was a replica when it was 900 years old, but whatever. He said it was carved, the message was 900 years ago. And when the emperor of Tibet married his daughter to the son of the emperor of China, and the Chinese for 900 years had claimed that was when Tibet became a state of China. And the Tibetans have claimed for 900 years that was a trade deal. And this is the debate that's still going on. And he said, if you think that in this room, in 1 week, we're going to solve a 900-year-old conflict, you're mistaken. He said, beyond that, he said, I'm no economic whiz, but he said, my understanding is that if you did something very abrupt, like a massive worldwide boycott of Chinese goods, that it would throw the economy of China into a tailspin, and that China doesn't have much of a social safety network, and most of the people are rural living, and you may even, by causing an economic collapse, you may even cause a famine. He said, I'm old enough to remember the famine, I guess it was 63, I forget the year, but there was a famine in China that killed over 25 million people in the 1960s. And he says, do I understand that correctly? And this fellow stood up and he said, yeah. He said, people died in South Africa as a result of the international boycott of South African goods because we took down their economy. And South Africans died, black South Africans died as a consequence of it. People we were trying to help. And he said, that's the price of freedom. And the Dalai Lama said, well, there's the problem. He said, because if the actions that we take in this room lead to the death of even one Chinese child, it's too high a price to pay for the freedom of my people. And we all just kind of sat there stunned, and for me, the aha was, and he elaborated somewhat, which helped this, was that all my life I had drawn a circle in the sand and said, okay, this is us in here. These are my people. And that's them out there. And those are other people. And what the Dalai Lama had just done is he came along with his little whisk broom and he said, son, no, I'm the same. We're all the same. We're all one. It's all us. We've got to figure out a way to do this that's all us. And then, later he pointed out that 2 weeks earlier, Richard Gere and Steven Spielberg had been there, and they made the same offer. Real dorks. But, he was just telling jokes. So, the carry-home message, I told you a bunch of stories here. Oh, one last story that I want to share, and I'll wrap this up. And then I'll run like a rabbit here back to back, and if you give me just a minute to get back, I'll go to the signing books. If you have individual questions, just drop by and say hi. Although the reason I go to get up really early. This last story, I started out by saying about the population of the Earth, and how 165 million years for the first billion people, 130 years for the second billion, 30 years for the third billion, 14 years for the fourth billion, 13 years for the fifth billion, 11 years for the sixth billion, maybe a decade for the seventh billion. And I said, that's not actually the story of the human race. And it's not. There are many cultures, which is what the subtitle of this book is, The Crisis of Western Culture. There are many cultures on Earth where the population has been level for 10,000 years or longer. In the case of the San, the Khum people, the Bushmen, the Kalahari, this is the oldest intact culture that's known. It's estimated to be 60,000